7-7 is about the areas of circles and sectors. So we're going to kind of go through that. What is a sector is where we're going to start. So number 1 says illustrate, draw a picture, illustrate the difference between a sector and a segment. These are both parts of circles. The center of the circle tends to be very important. A sector is basically a pie piece in the circle. I do want to fill it in. You can see it's similar to a central angle, but I'm talking about the actual piece of pie that I've cut out. Once again, that is called a sector. On the other hand, a segment is formed by a straight line that does not go through the center of the circle. And it's this little piece of the circle. These are called segments, and they're a lot harder to find the area for. A sector is pretty easy, a circle is pretty easy, the segments are a little bit tricky. So how do you find the area? Number 2, find the area for a circle, a sector, and a segment. And I have a special formula here that we're going to use for the segment. So just so you know, it's not in the book, it's one that I'm going to tell you to use. It's a lot easier than the way they do it in the book. Okay, so circle. For a circle, you need to know how much the radius is. And I'm just going to use r for radius. And the area is pi times r times r. We shorten that as pi r squared. For a sector, so that formula tells you the whole area of a circle. If instead I want the area of a sector, the area of the pie piece, I need to know what fraction of the circle that is. In order to know what fraction of the circle it is, that means I need to know the angle. So there's some angle in degrees, right? There's the measurement of that angle. And it's very similar to finding an arc length. It's just we're doing area instead of length. You need the angle measure out of 360 times pi r squared. It's a fraction of the area. Doing the angle measure divided by 360 gives you the fraction or the portion of the circle that you want the area of. So then on to segments. Segments are a little bit trickier. Let's say I want to know how much area is right here. In order to know how much area is right there, I have to know my center of my circle. I have to know my radius. Remember, this little section right here would be the radius. And I also need to know the angle. I need to know the radius and the angle, and with that I can find the area of that little segment. So the area of the segment equals the area of the sector minus the area of the triangle. When I'm talking about the triangle, I'm talking about this triangle that I just drew in. When I'm talking about the sector, I'm talking about the whole pie shape that we cut off. So if I find the area of that pie piece and then I cut off of it the area of the triangle, then I will have the area, the leftover, of the segment. So area of the sector. We know what the area of the sector is. It's the angle measure out of 360 times pi r squared. But from that, I need to subtract the area of the triangle. So minus the area of the triangle, I used it, I highlighted it up here It is, and I'm not really going to explain it, you're just going to have to trust me, 1/2 times r squared times the sine of whatever that angle is. So that angle is really important. Sine is a button on your calculator. So for my other notes, I'm going to give you an example of the segment. The other two are fairly easy. The only tricks are sometimes it asks you to leave it in terms of pi, so your answer is like something such as 8 pi. And sometimes they ask you for a decimal, where you use your calculator and convert it over to a decimal. If you have any questions about that, feel free to ask. But in terms of pi means there's a pi in your answer, and as a decimal means that you changed it into a decimal. So, area of a segment. So let me do an example. So I'm going to start with a circle. We're going to say that the radius is 8 feet. And I'm going to have a sector cut off that I'll say is 70 degrees. In the sector, I'm going to cut off a segment. And I want to find the area of that segment. So there's two parts to the formula. I need the area of the sector, which would be 70 out of 360 times pi r squared, that's the area of the sector, minus the area of the triangle. The area of the triangle is 1/2 times 8 squared, the radius squared, times sine of 70. I'm going to type it into my calculator exactly like that. So I have a big long mess to type into my calculator. So 70 divided by 360 times pi times 8 squared minus 1/2 times 8 squared times sine of 70. And I get, it's approximately 9.0. It's 9.025, and this is in square feet. So in comparison, just as a side note, the area of the circle is pi times 8 squared, about 201.1, right? Really big. The area of the pi piece, the area of the sector, is 70 out of 360 times pi times 8 squared, is 39.1 square feet. So you can see the 9 square feet is just this little tiny red part of the circle. The whole circle is like over 200. The sector, the pi piece, is around 40. And of that 40, 9 of it, right, I should say 39. Of 39, 9 of that is that little tiny segment. So that should do it for this lesson.